Welcome, and thank you to everybody for joining us today. We're going to be talking about the ABCs of clinical research, and I do have over 30 years experience in the clinical industry, both in drugs and devices, having worked for pharmaceutical companies, for device companies, and for CROs. I'm currently operating in my own CRO, which we do monitoring and auditing and training for industries, and as such, I have a lot of exposure to trying to get people up to snuff to work for a multitude of companies, both drug and devices. We prepared this particular program with the administrative staff in mind. I was just mentioning to Danielle that the TMF has taken on a whole new world in the last couple of years, and there are a lot of people coming into our industry with no medical experience, and that's not unusual. We've had that all along, but there's an influx of those kinds of currently, which makes this an interesting program because it gives you the basics or the foundation. So you have a little more latitude as to where to go when you're hearing abbreviations. Don't hesitate to ask questions because we all in the industry just throw them out like everybody was born in the medical world, and that's not the So we're going to review the basics of clinical research. We're going to highlight the important role that everyone, and I want to highlight everyone, has in this process. We want to make you all more productive team players because a solid team works best. And I hope that with the knowledge that you gain today, that you'll start to ask more questions of your team and therefore become a more effective team overall. The fact that you don't have the medical knowledge is not an impediment here. Oftentimes, the questions that are asked by non-medical people are the most relevant in the program. So let's get started, and we'll be looking at the objective first on the slides on our screen. So we have a whole list of objectives here. The first one being to recognize how important it is to be a knowledgeable staff. Everybody on the team needs to know what's going on to whatever extent is necessary for their participation. We're going to therefore define the common terms that are used in the field, both for drugs and for device research. Many of them overlap. You might be working in drugs now, but your company may, in fact, pick up a medical device as time goes on. We're seeing a lot more of that going on as well, or vice versa, device companies participating in combination products where the device might be the experimental piece, but the drug might be a known quantity, such as a patch or delivery system. We'll talk about the basics then of the development process for both the drug and the device world. And in doing that, we're going to look at the basic principles of GCP, good clinical practice, and the regulations that we need to follow. Those are the numbers you're going to hear thrown around, and everybody is expected to know what those would refer to. We'll talk then about just some very basic ideas of the clinical trial design and why we use a protocol. Many of you might get involved with the protocols or the amendments to the protocols. We'll talk about the essential standard operating procedures, or SOPs, and how critical they are for all of us. We need to read and understand those SOPs that refer to our position. What is it that we do? The regulatory agencies rely a great extent on our signing off on the SOPs that we've read and we understand how to proceed with whatever that task might be. We'll talk about the importance of that. We'll talk about the responsibilities that each one of us have on the clinical team and who the team is composed of for all clinical trials. We're going to look at the essential documents. Here we go with the TMF. It needs to be filed appropriately. If it's not filed, it doesn't exist. So we need to be very familiar with how to find things in that TMF, Trial Master File. We're going to talk about the importance then of training and the maintenance of current training records. The training records are a very big key to any regulatory inspection. We need to prove that everyone on our team has been qualified to do whatever it is they're doing. We're going to then look at the rationale behind building quality into our filing system. That, again, is our Trial Master File, our site files. A regulatory inspector will not go looking and looking and looking to find things. They need to be where they need to be, or else they'll be cited for not having them. And lastly, we'll talk about the do's and don'ts just in the event that you do have a regulatory agency audit or inspection. So give me a green check or red X or a smiley face, referring to if you only work with drug studies, if you only work with device studies, or if you work with both. Danielle's with just drugs at this time, and Lisa's as well. Okay, great. We're going to be starting up with the drug development process, which is a little more extensive than the medical device process. So as we get started then, our first objective was, why do we need to know? Why do we need to have a smart staff? Well, what is knowledge? According to the Webster Dictionary, it's a familiarity or an awareness or an understanding, and we're not born with it. It's gained through experience. So those of you that are new to the field, you're going to be learning. Every day is a learning experience. On-the-job training is the most important piece to most of our support staff folks. And why is that important? It's important because the FDA and other regulatory authorities around the world require us to submit documents to them, and those documents need to be accurate and complete. And if we're the staff that are doing that, we need to make sure that we know what accurate and complete is.